Good morning. I am Emily Fortuna. This is yet another Emily, Emily Shack. And we are both software engineers here at Google. We think Flutter is a fantastic way to easily develop beautiful mobile apps, and we'd like to show you how that's done. So let's say you're a startup and you have the next amazing world-changing idea. You want to get your app out to market as soon as possible. Throughout this talk, we'll be following one such hypothetical startup in that very situation. The founders of our startup, they looked at the wide array of chat apps available to them, and they felt like there just needed to be one more on the market. I mean, really, what their lives were missing was the ability to memify moments of their lives. If we could take a picture and put text superimposed in impact style on top, because it's clearly insufficient to be able to take a picture and put text above it or below it. No, you got to put it image macro style, share it with your friends. That will truly elevate the level of communication in the world. So, what we will see here, let's switch to the device screen. And we have our startup's flagship chat app, Meme Chat. What you see here, if you want to be old-fashioned and just send a text message, you do that, hit send, and if it's the first time you're sending a message, you get your Google authentication credentials are requested, because you don't want anyone impersonating you when you're sending memes. That is very important. And of course, talking to yourself only gets you so far. So we have this running on another device, an iOS device. And you can see it has the same functionality, but it looks a little bit different. It's appropriate to the device that it's running on. So we've got the nice silver screen top bar for iOS. We've got the Material Design app for Android. We have slightly different fonts. And we have slightly different behavior for the bottom of the scroll. We've got the end over scroll glow for Android and the end of scroll bounce for Apple. But so far, everything I've shown you is pretty standard. This is just a regular chat app. Where's the secret sauce? Well, Emily's going to hit the image button. She's going to take a selfie with all of you in the background. Say a cheese. And now, we can add our text for the meme. And there you have it. We can share it with your friends. So, over the course of this talk, would you believe that this entire app is written with under 400 lines of code, with multiple views, Firebase integration, Google sign-in integration, everything. And we will be live coding this very app, and you can see how easy it is to get from nothing to a beautiful Flutter app, just like you see here. So let's jump back to the slides. And so whether you're a startup with a harebrained idea, or you just are a developer that wants to be efficient with your code or your time, Flutter is a really way to easily develop beautiful mobile apps. Our startup founders did some research, some market research, and they found that the target demographic for their Meme Chat app were iOS users. So they heard about this cool Flutter technology. They're like, yeah, let's check it out. They started coding. It seemed like a pretty nice way to easily start developing apps and get their app up and running. Good news, everyone. We have a venture capitalist that's interested in funding our startup. The hitch, though, is our VC is, aside from being a cat, an Android user. And we want our VC to be able to dog food our app as soon as possible. So, but this means that our workload has just doubled, because now we have to write an iOS app and an Android app, and we're just a small startup. We want to spend time on adding cool new meme features. We don't want to spend time writing our app twice. But fortunately, because we are already writing in Flutter, this is an easily solvable problem, and it's not doubling our workload.
So Flutter allows you to write your code once and have a natural feeling app on both Android and iOS. All in all, Flutter's development experience is fast and easy, letting you spend less time developing more cool features for your app. Flutter also has an incredible development process with hot reload, which lets you update your code on the fly without having to restart your entire app. This means you can get up and running from nothing extremely quickly, and also lets you literally see your app come to life piece by piece. And of course, we integrate with Firebase. Now, we both know we are on the Firebase stage. You probably have already heard about Firebase here at I/O, but for anyone who hasn't, Firebase is a mobile platform that helps you quickly develop high-quality apps. With our Firebase plugin, you can painlessly integrate with a remote database that uses real-time sync, you can get usage analytics, and you can easily scale up as needed. We're going to get into the specifics of how we do this a little bit later on in the talk. But for now, let's take a look at how easy it is to get started writing your very first Flutter app.
So, getting your system ready to develop Flutter is actually really easy. You just clone the Git repository, and then you add Flutter to your path. Once that's set up, there's a really cool tool called Flutter Doctor that you run, and it will check your system for dependencies to see if there are any remaining dependencies you need to install. Examples of this are if you're doing iOS development, you want to install developer tools, or you want to make sure that you have Java installed for Android development. Of course, you don't have to have both of these installed, but you probably want to have one because you are developing a mobile app in some capacity. All right, let's jump over to the code. The code screen plus our app. Yes, there we go. So we have IntelliJ up and running. And this is where we're going to be doing our development. IntelliJ has really nice plugins for Flutter and Dart. Gives you auto-completion, nice debugging support, and you can run your devices from IntelliJ. So if you're doing cross-platform development, gone are the days where you need to have Xcode up and running and Android Studio and switch between them. No, you can make your changes in IntelliJ and just run either device or both from IntelliJ. So we took the liberty of writing out the skeleton of our app because no one wants to watch us type class definitions. That's boring. But I'll give you a little tour of how this is set up. So first we have our main method, or our main function. That calls my app, which is the top-level widget for our app. My app then has a chat screen, which is going to be controlling the view and what's displayed, your chat history, taking chats, all those things. Chat screen has a state, that's the real meat and potatoes and where all the interesting stuff is going to be happening. Chat user and chat message are two glorified structs. They basically are holding the actual information that we want to store for the chat message. So the text you're sending, in the case of like who's sending it, what their profile picture looks like, all those things, those are in there. Chat message list item and chat message content are the last two widgets that are controlling how they display on your screen. So chat message content says that message content that you want to send, how should it display on the screen, how big should it be, and the chat message list item holds a chat message content and also controls how to display, say, your profile picture and your name, all that laid out on the screen. So you see the name widget in a couple places here. What are widgets? Widgets, your entire app is going to be made out of widgets. Your app is one huge widget, which has sub-widgets, which has sub-widgets all the way down. If you're familiar with React, widgets are just like components. But if you're not familiar with React, don't worry. Flutter is a functional reactive framework, and the key idea is you're using your model data to describe templates for how your view should look in all sorts of different situations. The framework itself is the one that controls how to change between these different views. So it's a slightly different paradigm for how you would think about programming your UIs. And so rather than your more typical model view controller setup, where you have a controller that's running back and forth and syncing these two things, you've got your model data describing how your view should look. This means that in practice, it gives you a lot of really nice things like hot reload, which we'll demonstrate. But under the covers, while the developer doesn't have to worry about this means that the widgets that are created are immutable and ephemeral. And again, while you don't have to worry about how to change a view with an immutable widget, it helps save the developer from avoiding a lot of common bugs. Like if we have persistent, long-running UI objects, they could get in inconsistent states, and it's hard to debug. This way, it makes programming dynamic UIs much easier. Your code ends up being very modular and reusable. And like I said, it gives you awesome features like hot reload, because you can just swap out that little widget for the new piece. All right, I've talked a lot. Emily's been very patiently waiting for me. Let's actually dive into the code. So we're going to open up my app. And inside the build method, you see we have a material app, which is a widget itself. And material app has a container, which is incidentally also a widget. So right now, we have our app running on the screen. It's not very exciting looking. It's black because we have a black container. To demonstrate hot reload, Emily's going to update that black to white, because if you remember from our demo, we did not have a black chat screen. We'll hit the hot reload button up at the top. And you'll see very quickly, didn't have to do a full rebuild. It updated the app. OK. But we can use hot reload to do much more interesting things than change the colors of your widgets. So let's change container to be our chat screen. And we'll update again. And once it's updated, you'll see we have a menu bar at the top, so we know what chat screen or what app we're running. And then we've got a little space in the middle to have our chat history. So let's dive into actually being able to send messages. We're going to do that inside chat screen state. And there's the build text composer. Inside that, we're going to add a text field that will accept text input. And as you can see, Emily's putting this inside of a flexible. Flexible is another widget that can, in this case, is controlling the layout. So it's saying, hey, take this text field, and I want it to expand to take all of the horizontal space that's available in the layout. Text field is taking a couple of name parameters you see on submitted and on changed. These are going to be callbacks that are called when the text is incidentally submitted and changed. Now, we've been looking at this code. It looks kind of C-style-esque, but we've got like name parameters and first name functions. You may be wondering, what are we programming in? And the answer is Dart. Dart is a modern, concise, dynamic programming language. But it has a lot of really cool features that allow you to develop your code quickly without sacrificing quality and safety. So we have a statically typed mode, so you can be sure that your app is doing what you want. And it has a lot of cool features, much more interesting than name parameters, one of which is the nice asynchronous support that we'll be exploring later in the talk. All right, so now when Emily hits hot reload, we should see the text screen come down at the bottom, and she should be able to send a message. Nothing happens. That's because we haven't actually implemented our handle submitted function. So let's go jump to the handle submitted function, which is currently nothing, and we will update that. So first, we will clear our text message so that we can add more messages in the future. And then we're just going to call add message, which adds our text to the list of messages that we will be displaying in our history. Now when we hit hot reload, which I will note, so we're doing more interesting things. We're actually changing some functionality in this case. When you hit send, it's gone forever. No, actually not. We just haven't updated our view yet. So we have stored the message, but we haven't told the view to update. So if you're like me and you like to use your chat app for writing novels, it's kind of disappointing because you can't see anything right now. But let's go update the view to tell it to redraw that piece. So in here, we're saying when that message is added, we're telling the view, hey, my state has changed. You should go redraw this widget. And so we're doing that by calling setState. And then we add that message to our list of messages. So now when we hit hot reload, we should be able to see our messages. And you can use your chat app as a novel writing app as well. All right, we're good. So users, man, we did our startup did some testing because they were really excited, but they were not impressed with this app. They said they were complaining that it looked the same on every platform, and they weren't too thrilled about talking to themselves. So let's make a couple changes to make it look prettier. So we'll go up at the top, and we'll add theming. This is going to allow us to look a little more specific to the platform that we're running on. So a theme is another top-level widget that controls the behavior of its child widgets. And in this case, we're saying, what platform are we running on? And so now when we hit hot reload, you can see the message bar colors updating with silver for iOS. We've got our nice material color for or material style for Android. And then we have our the scrolling behavior that you would expect, and so on. There you go. And so why do I keep harping on natural look and feel? Well, the interesting thing about Flutter is drawing every single pixel to screen. So there are no crazy native OEM widgets that are going to interfere with your app and interact in weird ways. There's no web view you have to deal with. Flutter has spent a lot of time in making the view feel appropriate to the user. And this gives a lot of really nice features, so if you are trying to debug, you can step through your code and look all the way in, and you can also customize things as needed if the look is not quite what you want. So we're still talking to and we need to add some animation to make this look a little prettier. So we will add our animation controller. We're going to instantiate it, and we're going to pass in a duration, which basically tells how long we're adding our animation. In this case, we're making it a little bit longer so that you can see it on the video screen. So one more thing to do. When these messages are being built, we're going to create the animation that will then build this into view. So we do that by creating this ease out animation. It will ease it out of the bottom into the view. And then its child is going to be the original chat message item object. There's a lot of really nice animation support. There's flinging. They've got lots of things to make it feel natural, and it's very customizable. So once we hit hot reload, we should be able to send a message, and it will animate in. No, what's happened? So we have a bug in our code. If we can look at our console, which, there we go. There's our stack trace. We see that chat message has no instance getter animation controller. In this case, it's supposed to be a capital C for animation controller, camel case. And I want to also kind of point out, it's cool that the rest of your app that's running is still showing. It's just the part that when we hit that animation, it showed you the red screen of death. So Emily's updated the C for animation controller. We can hit hot reload this time. And now when she sends a message, you should see the messages beautifully glide into view. Look at it go. All right. So this is good, but we're still talking to ourselves. So I'm going to hop over on the computer screen, don the hat of coding +2, and let Emily talk you through how to add some plugins and let you do those cool meme features that I know you are all dying to learn about how to do.
So we have our basic chat app, but we really want to extend its functionality to add things like communication with multiple people. We want to add things that make it look a little bit more official, maybe Google sign-in. So in order to do that, we're going to use some plugins. And Flutter makes it really, really easy to add plugins to our app. So in order to do that, we're going to take a look at our pubspec.yaml file. Now, that's a file that is inside your Flutter project, and that's where all of your dependencies are declared. As you can see, we've got Flutter there. That's going to be in every Flutter project, but we're also going to use 5 different plugins. We're using Image Picker, Google Sign-In, Firebase Auth, Firebase Database, and the Cloud Storage for Firebase plugin. So each of these plugins does something a little bit different for our app, and we're going to get into what all of those functionalities are a little bit later on. But to suffice it to say that for now, this is the file that you have to declare your dependencies in, and that takes care of pulling in all of that code so that you can reference it in the body of your app just like any other Flutter code. So let's go back to our main.dart function. The first thing that we're going to add is Google Sign-In. Google Sign-In is going to enable us to go through an authorization workflow with your Google account. So here we've added a call to Google signin.signin. What that's doing is making sure that we go through that workflow. Once that is complete, we're going to incorporate the Google username and profile photo from the Google sign-in information in our message. Then once we add our message with that information, we have one more step, which is that we have to have a way to display that profile photo. Right now, in our chat message list content class, we're using the circle avatar widget in order to display our profile photo. We're going to switch that out and use the Google User Circle Avatar widget, which comes for free with the Google Sign-In plugin. And that's just going to make it easy to incorporate that image from our Google profile. So now, once we hit hot reload, we're going to go through that workflow. And just a disclaimer, we are already logged in on both of these devices, so we won't see that workflow now, but you did see it at the beginning of the talk. And you can see that we don't have to sign in more than once. And once we're signed in, now we're seeing our name and profile picture, and we can really tell who's sending that message. Unfortunately, this information isn't super helpful yet, because we're still only talking to ourselves. So let's add some more people to the conversation with Firebase Database. To use the Firebase Database plugin, we're going to have to add 2 components. We're going to have to make sure that we're writing our messages to the Firebase database, and we're going to have to make sure that we're reading in our messages from the database. The database is going to make it so that we can store our messages on a remote database rather than locally on the device, so that anyone who's authenticated to that database can read in those messages and write messages to it, and everyone can see that message list. Here you can see we're referencing Firebase Auth. That's where the Firebase Auth plugin comes into play. That's just making sure that we're authenticated to our database so that not just anybody can see those messages. Once we're signed in, now we're going to add a listener. That's that messagesreference.onChildAdded.listen call. What that's doing is, while our app is running, it's checking the Firebase database synchronously to make sure that all of the messages in the database are also reflected in our app. When we see any new messages pop up, we're going to then add them to our message list. And now you can see we've restarted our app, and we've seen the whole database populating in our app. And that restart, by the way, was a hot restart rather than a full app restart, which is sort of similar to hot reload, but just making sure that we're pulling in all of those messages from the Firebase database as though we were just starting up our app. So we have one more step, which is to push our messages to the database. We're doing that in a simple messagesreference.push call. That's how we're referencing our Firebase instance. So now, if we hot reload, then we should be able to send messages back and forth. And as you can see, almost instantaneously, those messages appear on both devices. We felt pretty good about it, too. We have a working chat app. We can send messages. We can talk to each other. We're feeling great at this point. We're getting really close to our goal. Unfortunately, we still haven't quite reached the status quo of chat apps, because we're still only sending text. What we'd really like to do is be able to send images. To do that, we're going to use the image picker and storage plugins. The first thing that we're going to do is add a button to make sure that we are referencing those plugins when we want to add a photo. So that button is going to be an icon button that looks like a little photo. And when the user presses it, it's going to kick off that photo workflow. When we go into that workflow, that's going to incorporate Image Picker in order to select an image, either from the device camera itself by taking an image or from the photo gallery. That image is then going to be sent to storage, where we get back a download URL to display the image in our app. So let's go ahead and write that handle photo button pressed function. Because right now, that photo button we're seeing isn't actually doing anything. The handle photo button pressed function is asynchronous. Now, we said we were going to get back to this later in this talk, and now is the time. Asynchronous functions are very, very cool in Dart. They're marked by that async keyword, and they're always going to return a future, which is basically the same thing as a promise. And the idea is that this function is going to return immediately, but sometime in the future, its actual return value is going to get there. So asynchronous functions can use the await keyword. As you can see here, we have 3 different calls to await. And that's a way of treating another asynchronous function as though it were synchronous. So we have a single line of code. We're not passing in any callbacks. We don't have any nested code. And we're able to get the result of that future before moving on to the next line of our code. So this function is really, really easy to read. We don't have a bunch of nested code where we're not sure when we're getting back that future value. Now, we've called our image picker and our storage plugin code, and now let's see what happens when we try and send our image. This time we're going to select an image rather than taking one from the device camera. Pretty good. So we have a chat app that can send text and can send images, and we get really excited about this. So we go to our VC. Unfortunately, our VC is not very impressed. They say, you haven't innovated at all in the chat space. This is exactly what we've seen before in other chat apps. How can we make this better? Our VC threatens to pull funding unless we can pull it together in the next hour to come up with a special innovation. This is where our Memefication is going to come into play. How do we memify our app? It's really just going to be a few lines of code, if you can believe it. We're going to add something else to our handle photo button pressed function, which is a call to the navigator. Now, the navigator is a handy widget in Flutter that handles switching off between views. So we have multiple screens in our app, and we don't want to have to write ourselves that back button or a close button of a dialog. So we're going to let the navigator handle that. We're just going to push a new screen onto a new page onto the screen. It's going to be a dialog in this case, a full screen dialog. It's going to be called the type meme route. That is just another widget. We have written it before the talk. It's about 90 lines of code, and you'll be able to check it out later on our GitHub if you're interested. But it's basically just another widget that's going to let us write text on top of images. So we're pushing that widget onto the navigator, and then we're getting back from it our text overlay that we're going to write on top of our memes. Then we're going to incorporate that into our message so that when we see our message in our messages list, it has that text overlay written on top. So let's take a look at meme chat. I think the hat of coding might be getting a little bit in the way.
Oh, sorry.
And now, once we send that meme, it's going to appear on both devices. There it goes. And we have memified our life. And finally, just to make sure we didn't cheat anywhere, we still can take pictures as well with our device camera. So let's see if we can go ahead and do that. We're going to take one more audience selfie just to prove we're legit. So everyone smile. All right. Now we've sent that meme. So let's take this back to our VC. We're feeling really, really good about it this time. I don't know about you, but I think our VC is going to like it. So let's go back to the slides just to see how our VC reacts. We have a great success on our hands. We get to take the month off. We get millions more dollars of funding to develop the latest, greatest chat app. We're feeling great. And we used Flutter to get there. So how did we do that? Using Flutter, we were able to get a natural look and feel for both iOS and Android just by using one code base. That gave us more time to develop our extra cool meme feature. We also used hot reload the entire time. If you notice, we did not fully restart our app once during this talk. That's pretty cool. Also, meme chat was pretty simple to write. It took less than 400 lines. That includes everything we didn't get to show you and everything we did get to show you. So we got a fully functioning chat app, and I haven't seen that done in under 400 lines before. We also integrated Firebase and a few other great plugins to let our app talk to the world. Now, Flutter is in alpha, and there are real shipped apps out there in the wild. So shown here are two great examples of Flutter apps, both internally and external to Google on Android and iOS. If you'd like to learn more about Flutter, you can visit our website at flutter.io. That'll get you everything you need to know about Flutter, documentation, getting up and running. We also have 2 code labs here on campus at Google I/O, so we encourage you to participate in those. Those are basically going to create meme chat without the memes, from start to finish, everything we didn't get to show you. And those will be available after I/O on Google's Code Lab website as well. Finally, there was another talk on Flutter here at I/O. Unfortunately, it happened a couple hours ago, so if you missed that, do not worry. It'll be on YouTube in a couple days, and we really encourage you to check that out. That's about Flutter from the perspective of a designer-developer workflow. Now, if you want to delve into our code a little bit more than we were able to show you today, you can visit our GitHub at the following link, and don't worry, this link will be on the next slide. Thank you so much. We hope that you enjoy Flutter as much as we do and that you find a great use for it in your everyday work. We will be in the Firebase sandbox following our talk. So if any of you have questions for us or want to chat about anything Flutter related, we would love to meet you there and talk about how Flutter can work for you. So please, please come talk to us. We'd love to meet you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.